I'm Allie with Potomac Beads, and today's video is going to show you how to use our new EVA beads along with RounDuo Minis to make this hourglass bracelet. Keep in mind, if you need any of the materials, we have them listed out in the start. We're going to be working with 2 needles to create this lovely design, which is going to give you access to actually tying off and adding your clasp right as you go. So to begin our hourglass bracelet, we're actually going to be using 2 needles, and I have on here 2 size 12 tulip beading needles, and I have about 6 feet of beading thread, the 0.006 Wildfire in the green color. Onto my needle, I'm going to add a 15, an 11, and a 15, and then I'm going to go through my faceted table cup button with the cup side down, and then with the needles coming out each side. So one going through one hole, one going through the other hole. I want to make sure that I pull my needles equal distance too, because I want to make sure that I have the same amount of thread on each side. Coming out the back of the button, I'm going to do a V. So I'm going to create a V basically with the thread and the beads by adding a 15 on both the right and the left needle. Then I want to do 2 of my 11 O's on both the right and the left needle. And then we're going to crisscross through one of our crystals here. So I'm going to go in here and get my 2x3mm crystals, and I'm going to crisscross. And what that means when I say crisscross is one needle is going to go through from right to left, and the other needle from left to right. Again, make sure that you're still maintaining that equal distance of thread through the needle. So when you get down kind of to the base, you want to make sure that you have the same amount of thread on either side. That's going to create a little V there on the button, which is going to allow, when we create the loop on the other side, to sit a little bit nicer. We'll go ahead and reinforce this button and the clasp section of the hourglass when we come back down the edges and add in our crystals. From here, we're going to begin and add in our first of our EVA beads. So to get to the section where we can add in our EVA beads, we're going to add 2 more of our 11s on both the right and the left needle. When we're working with 2 needles, generally speaking, whatever you're doing with one needle, you also do with the other needle in the same regard. So we're going to kind of be doing mirror images of the things we're working on from one to the other. To add the EVA beads in, we are going to always be kind of pointing them towards the middle. You'll notice that the beads that I'm using are the ancient gold, so they have a little bit of a color variety and a color mix. They're not going to be incredibly the same, which is fun because it gives you a little bit of a variety. It gives a nice fall look that I'm going for in this hourglass video. So from here, I'm going to make sure that I am facing them outwards, and my first needle on the right-hand side is going to go into the EVA so that the point is facing towards the middle, and the needle is coming out towards the outer edge. Same with the other one. I'm going in towards the EVA point and coming out towards the outer edge. When you hit the outer edge then, what I want you to add on both sides is we're going to add our mini RounDuo. On either side of the mini RounDuo goes an 11O seed bead. The mini RounDuos, if you haven't worked with them yet, they have 2 holes and they're a 4mm bead. And I'm going to put them on the outside of each of the EVA beads by then taking my thread and needle, the same thread that's on that side, so in this case it's that right side, the thread that's coming out of the middle of the EVA is then going to go back into the middle and towards the point. That's going to place that RounDuo Mini right along the outer edge. You can see it there. And again then, anything that's done on one side generally is done on the second side as well. So with the RounDuo Mini also, it does not matter which hole you sew into because they don't have a front and a back, they are round. Sewing into the EVA then, your thread and needle are going to end up coming out the top of the EVA bead there. And now what we're going to do is actually add in our RounDuo Mini right along the center of the project. Now that we're coming out the center, again, we're going to add that RounDuo Mini. So with the right needle, you're going to pick up 2 of your 11O seed beads, 1 of your RounDuo Minis, and 2 more 11-0 seed beads. We're going to go back to the bottom hole of the EVA bead. So this RounDuo Mini that's on the right side here, I put that on. I'm going to go back into that same EVA bead, coming out right after the first hole, which is going to round that out and put that right along and in the middle. The needle that's on the left-hand side, we're going to share that RounDuo Mini, so we're going to add an 11-0 on both 2 of those. Then we're going to share the RounDuo Mini going through the second open hole, coming out that area. Then we're going to add 2 more 11s and sew into the bottom hole of the EVA on the left-hand side. When you sew into the bottom hole, I want you to make sure that you are not going through the 11-0 seed bead. That's going to get you your first of your little hourglass that was created. When you're on the outer edge, that's when we're going to end up going through the second hole of the RounDuo Mini this first time. So what we're going to do is we are going to add 2 15s, and I have the copper lined, and then 1 of our same color of our 11. Sew through the second hole of the RounDuo Mini, and then add another 11, 2 15s, and sew back through the EVA bead as well, coming out then that top hole. When you pull then, you're going to see that that connects to the second hole of that RounDuo Mini on the outer edge. And then these 11-0 seed beads that we put in there, that's what we're going to attach to and join into when we come back down the project and add in the crystals. So again, on the outer edge here, we're adding in 2 15s after coming out the EVA bead, 1 11, jumping and grabbing onto the outer hole of the outside EVA that is already there, reversing that using 1 11, 2 15s, and going back into that EVA bead towards the center of the project. Give a nice tight pull at this section because you don't want any extra thread exposed in that first little hourglass. So now it's just basically a matter of repeating these same steps. To link one to the other, we're going to be using 3 15-0 seed beads. And then from those 3 15-0s on both the right and the left needle, we're going to again get ready to pick up our next set of our EVA beads. And again, when we pick up the EVAs, we're going to pick them up from the middle towards the outer edge. Needle that's on the right-hand side then, we'll get our 11 mini 11 and back towards the center of the EVA bead. Again, once this happens on the right needle, it's also going to happen on the left needle. So we have that EVA bead that we're going through towards the outer edge. Then we're putting on 1 11-0, mini 11-0, and back towards the middle. When we get back to the middle then, we have our 2 11-0s that get put on both needles. We're going to share the RounDuo Mini in the middle, and then once we share the RounDuo Mini in the middle of the project, then we will come back to the outer edge and add in our 15s as well as our 11-0s to continue to catch on. So we're going to continue then back to the beginning, basically going around creating our circle and our little X, creating our hourglass in the middle of the design. Once you have the length of the hourglass and you have all your little hourglasses set out there, I have, just to let you know, 26 total of the EVA beads that I'm using, and then you're using 3 RounDuo Minis for each of those basically sets of 13 hourglass that you do here. And this is going to be for a standard 7-inch wrist that you're going to do about 13 of those hourglass, so you're doubling the EVA beads, and then you're tripling the RounDuo Minis as you're working with them. When you're coming out to the end, when you have your desired length, we want to do a loop for our button to sit inside. So I'm coming out on both sides that I have all of my RounDuo Minis added, as well as all of my EVA beads added, and I'm going to basically be ready with my crystals and with my 15-0 seed beads to add. Coming out the end here, we're going to mimic the other side where we added 2 11-0 seed beads on both the right and the left needle. And then once we go from those 2 11-0 seed beads, Here's where we're going to do that crisscross again. Remember, we grabbed a crystal, one of those 2x3mm rondelles, and I'm using the amethyst AB color, which will bring back down the sides, and I'm going to crisscross through it. So one needle is going from the right to the left, and the other needle is going from left to right. Once I have that, that basically brings me right back into the middle of the project. And as I'm at the middle of the project now, it's time to create my loop. So to create the loop, you can choose whether or not you want to use 15s or 11s. I'm going to use my 11s, and I'm going to do about 25 of my 11 OC beads. If you have some 11 O's kind of scattered around your bead mat, this is a great time to kind of clean up and gather all of those up. The other thing that you can do is if you want to do a clasp, as far as a metal clasp or any sort of lobster or push clasp, go ahead and add your wire guard here or your wire protector, and that's a great spot for that. So I'm adding, and I've cleaned up kind of all over my bead mat. That's why I was off camera a little bit. Dump a couple more out to add onto my loop here. And you'll notice I'm just doing this right now with one strand of my thread. And once you know that your loop is big enough, you're going to take that same needle that's in your hand, go back through that same crystal and out, basically creating a loop. Then the thread that's on the other side, we are going to reinforce. So you're going to take the thread on the other side now and go back through that entire loop. So you make sure that you have at least 2 strands to 3 strands of thread that are going through anywhere that you have the clasp. Again, if you're using a wire guard or a wire protector or putting on a regular metal clasp, you want to reinforce that as well, making sure that you're adding in that second piece of thread just like we're doing now. If you want to, you can even go in and do a third go round. You can also do a little peyote stitch on the loop, which I always really like the look of, and I think it really finishes off the loop, which if you want to do that, you can actually do that and add in 2 of your 15 O's in place as you go along the peyote stitch. It gives a nice kind of polished end to it. Coming out the end of the crystal then, it's time to come back down the sides and add in the crystals. And basically what we want to do is we're going to be adding and linking the EVAs along the sides here so our hourglass sit nice and tight, as well as we're going to decorate the top of the RounDuo Minis. The top of the RounDuo Minis are going to end up having 4 of our 15 O's, and then we're going to connect the top of those RounDuo Minis by the 11 O's, adding in a 15, a crystal, and a 15. So to get there, basically, what we are going to do are we are going to retrace our needle. So the needle that's on the right hand side here, I'm going to go back through those 2 seed beads, back through the EVA bead, and then up the side we're going to go up through the 2 15s that sit there, and then through the 11 O seed bead. I'm going to take this one back down there. It skipped one of my 15s. Through the 15 and out the 11. And this is going to happen on both the left and the right side. I'll show you down the right side a little bit, and then again it's going to be the exact same. So on top of the RounDuo Mini, between the 11s, I want to connect with 4 of my 15s. Sew over to the next 11, and here's where it's time for a 15, crystal, 15, and then into the next 11 along the edge. Again, 4 of my 15s fit nicely in this space. If you want to do more of a bigger look, you can do 3 of your 11s, catching on to the 11 that's open right there, and then go ahead and put on your crystal. Once you're done coming up along the line, adding in your 3x4mm rondelles and your crystals, you can see that nice line that's created. Keep in mind these videos are always suggestions for you, and you can kind of take it and go with it as you're playing around. If you want to add, I have a crystal kind of sitting there to show you. You could go back and fill in the middle with crystals too if you wanted. I like the open look because again it goes with that really kind of hourglass look. When you get to the end of the design and you have added your last 4 15s, what you're going to do is get ready to go ahead and reinforce the button. Going back through like we did on the other side, we're going back through the EVA bead, through the 15s. We're going to go through the 2 11s and through the crystal. that sits below the button. From here, I want you to go up through the 3 11s that sit on the crystal button, through the button, and down then through to the other side. When I come out the other side, I'm going to have you go through, those 115 and 2 11s. And then I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other side. When I repeat the same thing on the other side, that gives me a 3rd strand of my string going through the button. So that's a nice secure way to really reinforce. And again, just like we talked about as we added the loop on the other side, you always want to make sure that you are reinforcing that clasp section. So if you happen to be using a wire guard or a wire protector and going up and adding a metal clasp, you want to make sure that when you're doing that as well, that you are also reinforcing it. So you can see also on the first time I did go below the beads to kind of pull the button down a little bit. And then this time here I'm going through the beads. There's no right, there's no wrong when doing that. It's just sometimes you'll be able to see the thread and sometimes you won't. So it's kind of what you want and your preference. Coming down then those seed beads on the side, the last thing we're going to do is I want you to sew through that 3 by 4 millimeter crystal and bring your thread and needle out the same side. At this point, my thread and needle are sitting right next to one another, both those 2 strands. I'm going to simply tie a square knot left over right. Switching hands then becomes right over left. So I have a nice square knot that I've created. And now I'm going to separate my strands. So from that knot, my one strand is going to come back down the EVA project and down a little bit. And because it's green, I'm going to bring it out near a green bead. So that way when I burn off the edge of the thread, you really won't see it. And on the other side, I will do actually a little bit of a hidden here and take it and burn off my thread right to the back of my button. So I like to separate out my threads when possible so that way you don't have the burned thread at the same place on the project. Going down then, I'll burn my thread end down flush towards the project, and that will finish up my hourglass bracelet. And remember, I used about 26 of the EVA beads, and then when you're talking about that, we used about 39 of the RounDuo Minis. I used 39. So this is for a standard 7-inch wrist. Keep in mind, if you need a little bit longer, you may need a couple more than that. I used 26 rather of the 3 by 4 millimeter crystals as well, which includes the one at the top and the bottom. Remember, if you need any of the materials too, back at the beginning, we list them out for you and you can purchase them from us in the links below as well in the details. Hopefully you enjoyed learning to make the hourglass bracelet, working with our 2 new Potomac exclusives. Keep in mind, if you need any of the materials, they're listed below the like box. You can also like this video, which helps me know exactly what you want to see, as well as comment and let me know what you've made with our EVAs and the new details that you had. Keep in mind, these are suggestions and ways for you to make your own product and your own diversity to the actual bracelet. Put some crystals in the middle, run some different things up the side, and make it yours. Also, if you need a list of the materials, you can go back to the beginning of the video where we listed it out. Keep in mind too that you can interact more with us by subscribing to this YouTube channel, as well as joining us on Facebook in our beading group. If you ask to become a member of the beading group for beading and jewelry making, it's a wonderful interactive group with customers like yourself that interact and give inspiration and ultimately make you a better beader.